Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to my booth. I'm Jay. Today's sample, it comes to us from Carson McCamy. And the sample, first of all, the performances and the tone of them is really great. And we're going to use Carson's demo as sort of a starting point to talk about how to compose your voiceover over the top of music beds. It doesn't happen often, but it can be helpful if you're DIYing your own demos. So we'll talk about that after we've listened to a couple of Carson's samples here. And as always, if you'd like me to review a sample of yours, there's a form in the description of this video. Fill it out, send me something, and we'll put you in a video just like this one. ASAP. There's also coaching on my website if you're impatient. Carson, let's do this.
The Chevy Silverado Trail Boss. Ready to off-road, right from the factory. Chevy, find new roads.
So clearly, Carson, you've got a really, really good grasp of the type of ads that fit your voice. This is the type of stuff that you're just going to get cast in, period. It's a really great thing. You read it really well. And the main thing that's holding back your demo is technical stuff, which we'll talk about in a moment. The voiceover levels are just a little too quiet relative to the music. And there are also a couple tips and tricks that you can put in place that will help with that. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's listen to the next sample.
Which iPhone is right for you? Welcome to the ultimate iPhone 14. From $999, a total powerhouse. From $799, as amazing as ever. From $599, serious value. iPhone 14. Love the power. Love the price.
That one's cool because Apple's stuff, when you listen to their things, they have, I don't even know how to describe their tone. Their branding is just so good. I mean, they're $1 trillion. They're a great branding company. And I wouldn't have initially pegged your voice, Carson, for an Apple ad, but I think it works here. My notes on this read, interestingly, a point here about the music thing that we've been talking about a bit. You may notice, for those of you listening, that sample was perhaps a little bit easier to hear over the music than the first Chevy truck sample. And there are a few reasons for that. One, the levels of the music are just a little bit quieter by the nature of the music itself, but also the type of music it is. Some types of music, because all of our sound in the universe operates on different frequencies, sometimes for different voices and different types of music, they'll be competing with each other. So when people are mixing engineers for music, they have to figure out how, like, the guitar, the drums, the bass, the keyboards, the synth, and the vocals all mesh together and mix together so that all of them are legible in a way that's artful and good. And that's different for music than it is for commercials. I'm not a mixing engineer by nature, but they do cool stuff over there. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about in a second. So that's just a small point there. As far as the performance of this one, it's interesting because it does work for me. And there are a couple points, like when you're breaking down the different types of iPhones. I think for like a demo like this one, it works because of the music and we can sort of play the visuals in our head. But it's one of those things where it feels reliant on the visuals. Like we need the spinning iPhone, the person laughing using it, just because there's space in between everything. So I might condense this one by just taking like the first second, find the key bits, and maybe one of the pitches, like iPhone for $999 is crazy how cool it is. Something like that, just to condense it a little bit. Let's listen to the next one.
In Lynchburg, Tennessee, you can park in the middle of the road to talk with a neighbor about taxes or the weather. You can pick enough wild blackberries to fill a tin bucket.
Yeah. I don't even need to go on because it just suits you so well, and you're reading it exactly the way it should be read. It's your niche. You know your niche, Carson. That's half the battle for many of us, so that's awesome. I'm going to skip the rest of the sample for the sake of time, and let's listen to this last one.
Somewhere in the Caribbean, there are 5-star luxury resorts where it's all-inclusive all the time. Sandals, where love is all you need.
This is one that's interesting, and I think your read of it works just by the virtue of your voice, but I would caution you against leaning on that as because it is such an asset for you. But this is a sample where I might encourage you to push against that sort of laid back, it's sandals. Here we are, here's sandals. It's all taken care of. Just take a chill pill and relax here at Sandals. Not because I think that's a bad read, but in terms of a demo, we want to see your full range. So I might encourage you to push up against that impulse and make this one maybe a little bit more positive, energetic, forward-leaning, whatever that is for you, just as a small note. Okay, Carson, you found your niche. You know what it is. Now let's talk about some engineering stuff that'll help you out and polish this up a little bit more. Firstly, your microphone sounds a little bit muffled, a little bit something. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what microphone you're using, but I recorded a silly little sample here with this SM7B, which is a fairly dull microphone relative to some other ones. So we'll play this. It's raw audio. Chevy trucks. Here's how you know how it's a good truck. It's got a bed. It's got wheels. It drives fast. Chevy trucks. They're good trucks for America. Yeah, inspired by your read there, Carson. It's not a good read, but there are a couple things that you can do to gussy this up. Firstly, you'll notice that my levels here are pretty low. So there are a couple ways you can do that here in Adobe Audition or whatever software you're using. You can just turn up the volume manually like that, or you can highlight everything and normalize it. There's different ways to set up normalizing. There's different ways to have hotkeys for that, different stuff, but just turning up the volume. For a mix demo thing, I'll normalize it around -3 dB to -1 dB on average, just to keep things simple for myself. And then in terms of preparing this for going over a spot, for short commercials of this nature and demos and stuff like that, breaths are unnecessary because we're going to be over music. So that's just extra information that's going to muddy the water. So I'm going to go in here. Look, it's got a bed. It's got wheels. And listen for breaths. So there's a breath, and I'm just going to take it out, silence it. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that for the whole thing, but we'll say that I did. Now, this whole thing's processed. I've compressed it a little bit. I have a hotkey that compresses and normalizes simultaneously, so you're not seeing that step. It's a little bit behind the scenes here, but it's there. I've done it. You can watch my video on how to compress your voiceovers and how to EQ your voiceovers. Now what we're going to do is go to a multi-track session. Multi-track just means that there's multiple tracks, one for your voiceover, one for this. And the beauty of having multiple tracks is you can process them differently and in relation to each other, as well as just layering things on top of each other. So to start, we're going to grab my voiceover and just drag it over to the track here. You'll notice that there's a little FX thing here. I'm not processing my voiceover at this point because I've already done that. Now I'm going to grab my music, which I've pre-selected. Where is it? Here we go. And I'm going to drag that into the second track here. And I can zoom out a bit, and it's a very long song. And just by scanning it, you can see via the waveform that there's sort of different sections of the music. So we'll listen to different sections and just see what might fit my Chevy trucks at the best. Okay. Oh, that's a little bit more driving. Okay. Now, one thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll look for these transitional sections here. Why can't I zoom in? I'll look for these transitional sections. So like right here, there's sort of a moment where it goes from that and then it'll shift into something else. So let's take a listen to that because that might be useful. Okay, yeah. Let's try using that section because that sounds like a fun little bit, and maybe we can work that into our ad. So I'm gonna slice just an arbitrary section out there and get rid of the rest for the moment because we don't need a ton of audio. I'm gonna drag it to the front again. And I talked about this in, I think, the last subscriber feedback about trying to sync sections of your audio up. Granted, this ad is totally silly and ridiculous, and it doesn't really have any sense to it. But we'll just sort of arbitrarily sync things up. So I'm going to listen to my ad and listen for potential transition point.
It drives fast. Chevy trucks.
Okay. Usually the moment right before a tag, the tag being the like, here's the product or the brand, and here's the thing that you need to remember about it. So for Chevy trucks, it'd be like Chevy trucks, Ford Tough, or whatever the thing. I don't know what they are, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to slice this right before that tag, and I'm going to bring this over to the sort of crescendo-y moment, and then we'll put this here. Arbitrary choices. This is not the full essence of what we're doing. This isn't like a demo walkthrough. I'm just trying to show you how to put music under stuff. So I'm going to bring it all back to the beginning. Great. We'll give this a listen to get sort of a baseline.
Chevy trucks. Here's how you know.
So we can't even hear my voiceover at all, which means I need to firstly turn this puppy down a bit. So we're going to pull it down by about, I don't know, 10 dB, 15 dB, and we'll give that a try.
Chevy trucks. Here's how you know how it's a good truck. It's got a...
So we can hear ourselves a little bit better, but still it's competing with my voiceover at times. The volume of the music stays the same when I speak. So what we're going to do is turn on the FX and use a dynamics processing. This is a kind of complicated way of compressing things. In essence, what it does is this first track sends information to this second track, that's called routing, and tells it to turn the volume down. You can do this manually by simply, what is it? Yeah, you can put little key points in there and turn down the volume manually when your, when your voiceover starts. And that's a great way to do it for a short thing like this, but if it's for like a longer thing and you don't want to take all this time, there's another way to do it. So we'll try this one without the dynamic processing. So this is the manual version.
Chevy trucks. Here's how you know how it's a good truck. It's got a bed.
So you can kind of
It's
hear
got wheels.
You can kind of hear how that helps it out, gives me space in terms of volume for my voiceover to sit within that. Alternatively, oh goodness, can I just delete these? Good. So I'm going to delete those little keystrokes and show you this dynamic processing. I won't do a full walkthrough here just for the sake of time. If you're interested in a full walkthrough on sidechain processing, blah, 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 let me know and I'll do that. But for here, does it have this thing set up? No. So what this is doing is it's listening to the volume of my voiceover and essentially compressing or turning down the volume of the music in conjunction with the voiceover automatically. So basically what this is doing is the manual, I'm turning the volume down here and here and here. Now I'm just offloading that to a plugin. So let's give it a listen.
Chevy trucks. Here's how you know how it's a good truck. It's got a bed. It's got wheels. It drives.
So you can see on the plugin here how this red thing starts going down pretty significantly. So that just means that it's turning down the volume when I'm speaking by that much. And it sounds fine. Now, there's another thing. What I was pointing out in your sample, Carson, between the type of music that you had in the first Chevy truck spot versus the Apple iPhone spot, and how the iPhone music made your voiceover easier to hear, whereas the Chevy truck one was still pretty muddled and difficult to hear. Part of that is the competing sound frequencies. So what we can do here is put in a EQ, and this will turn down frequencies that match up with my voice or your voice. So essentially, we're additionally turning down the volume on parts of the music where our voice will reside. So for many of us human beings, our voices end up being around, between about 100 hertz to about 600 hertz is where the bulk of our voices are. So I'll put it smack dab in the middle. I'm going to widen this Q out a fair bit and take that down by about 5 dB. You may not be able to hear it here on YouTube because they're going to do, sorry about that. They're going to do funky stuff to the sound. But let's give it another listen just to see how it plays.
Chevy trucks. Here's how you know how it's a good truck. It's got a bed, it's got wheels, it drives fast. Chevy trucks. They're good trucks for America.
So yeah, there you go. That's how you can do a couple different things to carve out some space for yourself in music, and that's a great starting point. Again, I'll probably do another video on this in more depth, a more tutorial-esque video. If that's of interest to you, hey, let me know. But Carson, thank you so much for sending this in. Great work. Take that stuff, put it in, and it should make your voiceovers, which are already pretty darn good, even better. And for the rest of you, I hope this was helpful. If you like this stuff and you find it helpful, you can help us out by clicking the stuff, checking out how to support the channel in the description. And until the next one of these, I'll see you then. Be well. Toodles.